They say you don't get a second chance at a first impression. And it's true. Connecting with your client on the first call is crucial for driving your success. In this workshop, you'll learn how to use an introductory call to create a lasting impression on your client, so you can not only win their business, but create a top-class experience to drive deals and referral business in the future. We'll cover how to engage your clients with confidence from the very first contact, conveying value and connecting with your clients to fully understand their financial goals. Let's get started.
So again, thank you for coming and investing in yourself and leveling up your business. What we're going to be talking about today is something I think is very important: first impressions. So how to make a strong first impression with your client, whether it's that first call or an introductory call, whether maybe it's a referral, maybe you've been paired with a lead through Morty, but how to go about having that call in a really professional manner that's going to leave the client with a really strong first impression and help you win more business. So what we're going to be covering here today, just a quick agenda for us. We're going to do some introductions, let you know myself and my good friend Tim, who a lot of you know as our platform success manager. We'll also cover just some general things about the structure of a first call and how to think about it in different stages. The 3 stages that we're going to be talking about today are the actual strong intro, personalized value, and then getting into your client's goals and understanding their situation and their motivation. We'll also talk about pivoting and go over some tactics that you can use to help control the conversation and keep things on track as you go. And then we're also going to give you an opportunity to practice and rep this out yourself so that you can start trying and playing around with things and finding something that fits and feels natural for you. And then at the end, we'll talk about some other things we have coming up, and we'll also have some time for a Q&A. That said, as we go, we want this to be interactive. I'm going to have the chat up. We're also going to have Tim's going to be helping me run that. So Tim's going to be monitoring the chat for any questions that you have there. Tim will stop me from time to time. So if you have things, don't feel like you have to wait to the end. Ask them as we're going. That way we can stop and respond relevantly. So a little bit about myself. Some of you have met me, some of you may not. You may have seen me around. I joined Morty at the beginning of November and am in our role as Director of Platform Success. So my job there is basically to support all of you, make sure that we're giving you the support, training, resources, technology that you need to be successful and go out and win business. A little bit about myself. I am based out of Boston. My wife and I moved here from Detroit 2 years ago. Originally, I'm from California. Prior to joining Morty, I worked for 7 years at Rocket Mortgage. I actually started out as a refinance banker, and there we worked on what we called escalation refi. Basically, that was selling to clients that had already told Rocket no before or that we had denied. So a lot of what we talk about today are things that we experimented with, tried out, tested, and found to be really effective of re-engaging that client and getting their attention and connecting with them on that first call. Also with us is Tim Martinez. And Tim, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hey guys. Most of you have already connected with me in some shape or another, but you've probably heard my Morty background. I've been here for just over 3 years now, mostly as a closer and helping our LOs get those deals over the finish line. So what you may not have known is that I've also spent 3 years in mortgage subservicing as well, so seeing a few different sides of the process. And then aside from that, spent about 6 years in sales as well. So can definitely understand kind of the situation where it's important to make that strong first impression. As you can see, I've made a ton of cold calls myself and know what it's like to try to get that person hooked on early, keep them engaged, and see the conversation through. So happy to be here with all of you, and I think that this is going to be a really valuable training for everyone.
Awesome. Thanks, Tim. And yeah, so obviously a few too many people for us to go around individually and introduce ourselves all, but just as a quick exercise, Go ahead, everybody in the chat, let's put in who you are, where you're calling in from. If you are working part-time, what you do full-time, or what you did prior to becoming a loan officer. And then something just for fun, go ahead and also put in what is your go-to comfort food. So we'll just take a minute there. Who you are, where you're from, what you did before this, and then what is your favorite comfort food. I'll go ahead and put mine in there as well. Oh, bone-in ribeye. That's a good one, Ben. I like that. Japanese food, a little less greasy than some of these other options. Nisha's going for the healthier aspect. I like it. All right, few people looks like might be a little shy. That's totally okay. We won't put anybody on the hot seat just yet. So we'll keep moving. But nice to meet all of you. I know I haven't gotten a chance to meet all of you yet, but looking forward to it. And in fact, I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end. All right, so before we get into all this, let's take a minute and just talk about why first impressions matter. Right? We've all heard you don't get a second chance at a first impression. But I was looking at this, and when I was planning this training, I did a little bit of research and found some stats and facts that I thought were interesting. So we're going to make this interactive as well. So the first one is, go ahead and put your guess in the comments. What is the amount of time it takes a person to form a first impression? So when somebody meets somebody new, how long is it before their brain has formed a first impression? So we'll take a second, go ahead and in the comments, put in your best guess. All right, so we're seeing a good variety of answers here. I like that. So some folks 30 seconds, 10 seconds, a minute, 5 minutes. A few people are calling out 5 seconds and 7 seconds. So actually pretty close to a lot of us, right? And what surprised me about that is how short that is, right? And so we don't have very much time before somebody's brain is already starting to form a first impression. So in a minute, we'll go over a few tips and tricks you can do with your voice and how you come across on the phone to try and increase that engagement and have that positive first impression. Now, our next one, length. Most prospects will listen to a cold call. So this is how long do you have if you're cold calling somebody before they start to tune you out and it's just kind of in one ear, out the other. So go ahead, put in how long do you think you have before most prospects will stop listening or disengage from a cold call. All right, I like it. Austin's going for the extreme, half a second. Would not want to be knocking on his door. All right, we see 20 seconds, 2 minutes, 15 seconds. So some really good guesses there. I think a lot of us are pretty close. 30 seconds, right? So a little bit more time than a first impression, but not much. And so we're going to go over some tactics and what we call a call to action, something you can use to get that engagement with your client on the first 30 seconds while not losing control of the phone call and just letting things get off the rails. Okay, our last stat that we have here for you. This one is a percentage. So what percent of customers believe that a sales rep truly understands their needs? And right, this is across all industries and all types of sales, but what percent of customers believe a sales rep truly understands their needs? All right, so we're saying 5%, 10, 25, 15%. So you guys your guesses are getting better and better as we go. Maybe I should have found some more obscure stats and kept it challenging, but 13%, right? So that struck me. That means that like 80%, 87% of the time after talking with a client or a prospect, that prospect feels like the salesperson didn't understand them or truly understand what their needs were. So we're going to talk about, especially in stage 3, some really good ways to go digging deep with your client on their goals, while also finding the information out that you need in order to qualify them, and giving you some tactics to build that connection and make your client feel like they're truly being heard. So before we move on to the first part of the call, one other thing I wanted to highlight here. This is a breakdown of what percent of a first impression is made up of. So it's broken up into 3 buckets, visual, vocal, and verbal. The first thing that stands out, obviously 55% of that is visual. Things like body language, facial expression, if you're using your hands, your environment, what your appearance looks like. Most of the time, we're not talking with clients face to face. So important to call that out, just to realize that we've lost 50% of our bandwidth to communicate when we're on the phone. So it's extra important to double down and pay more attention than you would talking to somebody in person with how your voice sounds. The other thing I wanted to spotlight here, right? Some of us are working locally. And so if you do have an opportunity to meet with your clients locally, maybe at a coffee shop, or if you have an office front, that's a great way to separate yourself from the competition, because now you've got twice as much at your disposal to communicate and build that connection with your client. So if you do have the opportunity, meeting in person is really valuable. If not, that's okay. We just need to be mindful of that other part that we do use to communicate. So that's broken up 38% vocal and only 7% verbal. What that means, vocal is how you sound or how you say something, the tone, your intonation, your inflection. Verbal is the actual words you say, which is really crazy if you think about it. So only 7% of a first impression is about what you're saying. The rest is how you're saying it or how you're presenting, right? So we'll go over some tips on how to manage and be mindful of your tone and have a really positive, use that vocal intonation to create a positive first impression. We'll go ahead and, we'll wait for questions. It doesn't look like we've had any yet, but just a reminder, if we do have questions as we go, feel free to put those in the chat. So the structure of a first call. What is our objective on this first call? We want to create that strong first impression. We want to establish a connection with our client, right? We want to be in that 13%, not the 87% of salespeople. And we want to understand the goals and motivations of our client and make them feel like we understand that as well. So we're going to do that and focus today on the first 3 steps. Our strong intro, this is where you introduce who you are, right? It's the shortest, it's the quickest piece. We also want to include a call to action here. So again, we're using that first 30 seconds to engage the client and get them bought in on the conversation. After we've done that, then we want to go into our personalized value. This is where you very quickly spotlight yourself and the Morty platform. So this is where you want to highlight yourself. What makes you special? Why should a client want to work with you as a broker rather than another loan officer? We also do the same thing for Morty. We'll give you some tips on how to promote some things that make Morty different and unique and stand out in the marketplace. The idea here is to convey that you're special and that Morty is special. And then when we get to the next step, understanding why your client is special and why we should all work together because all of us are special, right? Because of course, everybody's special. A client, right? It's a main character syndrome we all suffer from time to time. So making them feel like that and making them, because of that, why that's a great pairing to work with us. So we'll go into client goals, how to dig deep, get the information you need to qualify the client while also building that connection and making them feel seen. So strong intro. We want to make a strong impression and engage the client. How do we do that? First, very simple. Who are you? Where are you calling from, or why are you calling? Right? And here we only have 7 seconds, so we want to be very concise in this, right? So, hey, Tim, this is Iggy. I'm your mortgage broker from Morty. I understand you are looking into some options to purchase a house. I'm going to be helping you out with that, right? No more than 1 or 2 sentences. From there, now we want to engage the client. We do that through a call to action. So that's asking the client to do something for us, right? Way I like to do that, do you have a pen and paper, right? Because they're going to want to take notes. If they say yes, great. Let me give you my contact information, right? Now you've got them engaged. You're telling them something and they're writing that down, right? You're really driving the conversation. If not, that's fine. You can pivot to no problem. I'll send it to your email or your text, right? I have that information here because you filled out this form on Morty, shows the client you're legitimate, you're really calling from where you say you are, and letting them know that you're a professional. They know how to get in touch with you after the call or if your call gets disconnected. So who are you? And then immediately into that call to action, something to engage the client in that first 30 seconds and get them involved in the conversation. From there, then we're going to transition into our personalized value. Easiest way to do that is a simple question. Have you heard of Morty before? So we'll get back to that in a second. But one thing to be mindful of here on your strong intro, you want to make sure that you're always matching your energy to your client, but you always want to be a little bit above where your client's energy is, right? If we're sounding very down and slow, nobody's going to want to be engaged in that conversation. On the other hand, though, you need to match to your client. So maybe you call and you think, crap, I've just woken this person up, right? They sound kind of daisy. You don't want to be up here like this with your energy. They're going to want to just hang up on you. So you have to be listening to your client's tone and matching your volume. How much do you change your intonation, right? Always ending in a positive inflection. These are some very simple things you can do with your voice to match your client's energy, but also be just a little bit above that and engaging them. Another great tip is be mindful of your environment, right? In that first 7 seconds, that's our real make or break. So make sure that when you're reaching out to the client, you're in a calm, quiet place, right? If you're in a room, you've got the door closed, hopefully not somewhere with like construction or street noise going on that's going to distract the client, but also nothing that's going to distract you. Because if you're on the phone with the client and you do that, they're going to hear it. That's not going to be very engaging. So you want to make sure that you don't have any distractions in your environment as well. The last thing to just think about a little bit is your body language, right? You can almost hear the difference if I lean back than if I sit forward and engaged. Clients don't always know why they can tell a difference, but they can tell a difference if you're smiling and talking on the phone versus if you're not smiling. So a good tip is just, smile and dial. Also, maybe if you're naturally a little bit more laid back and you're talking to somebody that's higher energy, a great tip for that is try standing up and talking to them where you can get a little bit more energy into your voice by doing that. So we'll pause there real quick. Just make sure, does that make sense? Anybody have any questions so far? Okay, perfect. So that's step 1. Again, this is our shortest step. Once we've done that, established who you are, why you're calling, and engaged the client, we want to transition into who are you, like what is important? Why should the client be listening to you? So we do this by personalized value. So this is, again, establishing what makes you special and what makes Morty special in a way that's relevant to the client. Why should they care? So this is going to be different for everybody here. You'll notice that we don't have any scripting because it's going to be unique, right? If we just gave you a script to read here, you'd sound like a robot and it wouldn't sound very personal. Everybody's got a different background story and different experiences and different motivations for being a loan officer. So think about, what are the things that make you unique as a loan officer, right? And why would a client care about that? So maybe you have past experience. I know a lot of us are real estate agents or have spouses that are real estate agents. That might be something you can draw on. If you have past experience in the mortgage industry, maybe you don't. And maybe instead you can talk about why you became a mortgage officer and what gets you motivated, right? And how that separates you from other loan officers. But again, the thing here is it should be tailored and personal to you, because then you can speak passionately about it. So to help out with that, we're actually going to do an exercise. So I'm going to give everybody a minute. Go ahead and grab a pen and paper if you have it. If you don't, go ahead and open up on your phone the Notes app, just something where you can write down some thoughts and brainstorm. And in fact, I'm going to grab my phone and turn on our timer, and you're going to have 60 seconds. And what I want you to do in that 60 seconds is write down as many things as possible of different motivations or reasons why you became a loan officer or what separates you as a loan officer. So again, right, just as many as you can. We're only going to do it for 60 seconds, starting now. All right, we've got about 10 seconds left. And time. Okay, so pencils down. Now, go ahead and look at that list. Take a second. What we're going to do next is we're going to take another 30 seconds. And what I want you to do is go through that list and start to rank them. What are the better or stronger reasons versus what is some of the weaker stuff that you kind of just threw out there? And I want you to take 30 seconds and come up with your top 3. If you can, come up with 1, 2, and 3 in order, but if not, just come up with your top 3. And again, remember to think about this through the client's lens. What are the things that the client is going to be relevant, that a client is going to buy into about you? All right, and just a few more seconds there. Okay, now I want everybody to pick just one. Again, if you did rank them, put your number 1. If not, that's okay. Just go ahead and pick one reason and put it in the chat. So what is that one thing that you can talk to with clients that shows the value you bring as a loan officer? Mystery of home ownership. I like that, right? Talking about educating your clients and helping them through that. Resourceful, 100% focus on you, right? So these are some really good ones that we're seeing here. I will say, obviously, as you go through your career, this is going to evolve and develop, right? Some of us right now may be more focused on motivations or past experiences. As you become more successful as a broker and close and originate more business, you can start to lean on those experiences or specialties that you find yourself in. Now, obviously, this is something that you may not come up with just overnight here. I do want to also call out on our platform 360. If you go to grow, we have several up-level guides that we have put together. These are designed to be self-guided exercises that you can go through that will help you. So one of those up-level guides is for building a personal brand. So if you feel like, I just not really solid, I don't really like what I've come up with yet, I encourage you to go and check that out. Those are available for purchase. A lot of really good value there on helping you do some inventory and figure out what is it about you that makes you special, and come up with a really professional sounding personal brand. Just a reminder too, we have a list, we'll send those out. But those of you that were the first 15 to sign up for the training today, you'll also get a 15% discount code for either that, or if you want the other up-level guide that we have right now on networking with some tools and resources and activities to help think about and start building your professional network. So just another resource, encourage you to go and check those out as well. So now that we've established who you are, what's special about you, we also want to talk about Morty, right? And the platform that we're bringing to them. So on here, we've shared a few of our company values. This is not an exhaustive list. Again, this is something that you can personalize and tailor to your own style. But some things that we like to highlight that are good to talk with clients about: transparency, right? Knowing through our technology exactly what's happening with their loan. If it's pre-approval, using the interactive quote pricing to see different options and be able to change their costs and points around and see in real time what that does and what their purchasing power looks like. Once they do find a loan and get pre-approved, being able to use the closing tracker and follow what's happening every step of your life from conditional approval to funding. Of course, with our nationwide network of lenders, we can talk about having competitive pricing, right? We're partnered with some of the largest lenders in the country, which does get us some very competitive pricing, but we're also partnered with some smaller lenders that offer some more unique loan programs that the bigger lenders don't offer. So we're able to serve clients on both ends, both with really competitive pricing, but also with some custom and bespoke loan options as well, right? Going back to the technology, that seamless experience. You can also talk about how something different about Morty. We have our own in-house underwriting team that reviews every file before it's submitted to the lender. Why that matters to a client, we're going to double check everything up front, make sure we've got everything to the lender's guidelines before we ever even submit their file, so that once we do, they're not being pestered, hopefully, for tons of extra additional paperwork or other conditions, and we're able to have a very smooth, seamless process that closes on time or early. And of course, also great people, brand yourself. Another thing is we are a little bit of a smaller shop than some of these places like Rocket Mortgage. Use that to your advantage. You can talk about how you're going to be the client's main point of contact the entire way through process. They're not going to be handed off, and they're going to be getting hands-on attention every step of the way, because they're not just a loan number to us, right? So these are all things that you can think about to separate Morty from going with another lender. Cost matters at the end of the day, but also so does service, right? And maybe you save $5 a month, but if you don't close on the loan or it's an absolute nightmare, clients don't want to do that. They want to know they're getting a good value. They're not getting ripped off, but they're also going with somebody that's going to give them good service, right? It's why we all go to a sit-down restaurant for a date rather than a drive-through at like McDonald's, where it would certainly be cheaper, but the service isn't there. One other thing here, we'll share the slides afterwards. We do have an additional resource where that you can click on with just some additional scripting on Morty. If you have additional, more questions on things you can talk about or how to leverage, you can always reach out to myself or Tim. We can help guide you through how to have those conversations. The last thing just to call out is, again, this should be personal. Not everyone's going to pick the same things about Morty they want to highlight. Pick the things that you think are cool. What are the things that you get excited about? Because that enthusiasm is going to come through in your voice, and the clients are going to hear that, and they're going to get excited about it too, right? So pick the things that you think provide the value. As you start to get context with the client, you can always come back and add in and mention more of these things relevantly as you're learning more about the client's experience or their situation or past experiences. So now on to our third stage of the call. So we've done the strong intro, establishing who you are, leaving a good first impression, establishing the value you bring and the value that your platform, Morty, brings to the client. Now we're going to flip the script, and it's time to make the client feel special, right? We've established what's special about you and Morty. Now we need to understand what makes the client special. So your goals here, obviously understanding their situation and motivation, but this is also where you want to build that connection with your client and get into that 13% of salespeople where clients feel they do understand their needs. So some tips to do that, right? I generally think of this as a seek to understand part of the conversation. You've been controlling the conversation, right? We've talked about using closed-ended questions like yes, no, do you have a pen and paper to engage the client, but maintain control. At this point, you're going to turn control over to the client a little bit and start asking open-ended questions. So instead of something like, are you paid salary? You would ask, tell me a little bit about your work. Tell me about how you get paid, right? You want it to be open-ended so that the client's talking as much as possible, right? 2 ears, 1 mouth is what we want to think about here. And again, we'll go over a few more tips, but something just to call out as well. People buy on emotion, right? So as you're doing this, of course, be taking notes throughout, but pay special attention when people talk about an emotional response or a trigger or how something makes them feel. Make note of that because you can come back and refer to that later once you start talking about loan options and what that's going to accomplish. Rather than just a number, you can start talking about what that feeling is going to be like for a client to get in a new home, finally have room for their kids, or whatever that goal may be, right? It's just a much more powerful way to connect with your client. Another good way to connect and let your client feel like they're being heard is to repeat it back. So you can either parrot or paraphrase, but it's a really simple but effective trick. Literally, the last 3 to 5 words, just repeat them. So if somebody ends in a statement, you just repeat that back at the beginning. It, one, confirms that you're paying attention and shows them that you're listening, but it also lets you confirm that like you understood what the client was trying to tell you when they said what it is they said. It's also a great opportunity to show empathy, right? A favorite phrase is that must feel very blank. So maybe a client saying, you know, we've tried this before and we thought we were approved and the lender came back and said we didn't have enough assets and we lost our offer. Right? Wow. So just they didn't check enough assets up front and you lost the house because of that. That must have been incredibly frustrating. Well, actually here at Morty, we have our own underwriting team that reviews every file ahead of time. So something like that we would have caught and made sure we had the proper conditions or contingencies in place. So rest assured you're in good hands with us. And then you continue on in the conversation, right? So you're showing the client you've been heard, you're connecting with them on an emotional level, and you're using that opportunity to come back and talk about the value that you and Morty can provide to the client. Remember, everybody's favorite topic is themselves. So again, the more questions you can ask them, they don't all have to be about the loan. In fact, it's a great way to build connection. Client mentions, you know, maybe they're taking their kids to soccer or what their weekend plans. Make note of that too. Next time you talk to them, follow up. It's a really simple thing that nobody will ever talk about in like a Yelp review or something like that, but it's really powerful to connect with your client and show that you truly are listening and care about them. One more thing on taking notes. Obviously, we want to be as detailed as possible. Some people prefer to record a call. That way they can be more engaged and present in the conversation, and they know they can come back later and find out if they missed a little detail here or there. They can focus on the client, not getting every single thing written down. That's a great thing, a great tactic or tool to use. The only thing we want to call out there is if you do that, you absolutely must tell the client at the beginning of the call that it is being recorded. It's a federal law that if you're recording somebody, you have to let them know over the phone. Very simple. You can work it into your strong intro. My name is Ingmar. I'm a mortgage broker at Morty. I just need to let you know that this call is being recorded for quality assurance. Do you have a pen and paper? I can give you my contact info. Something very simple as that. So again, make sure you take notes. If you want to do a call recording, that's a great option. You just have to let the client know. Now, we're not going to go through all of the questions you should ask a client. It's an almost infinite list, right? You can spend as much time as you want here talking with the client. The main things you're trying to find, though, what are their motivations and what is their specific situation? What led them to buy? Why buy now? Why not sooner? Have they thought about this in the past? You also want to gain an understanding of their understanding of the process, right? You're going to talk to a client very differently if they're on their 10th investment property or if they're a first-time home buyer and their parents never owned a home. So understanding their background is going to be really important so that you can respond relevantly to them as the mortgage expert. The other thing we want to talk about is what we call PICA. That stands for property, income, credit, and assets. Without information on those 4 pieces, you don't have enough to qualify your client, and you're not going to be effective as a loan officer. So it's really important that we hit on those. And then, as we've emphasized already, looking for those emotional goals and triggers. So I do want to share a resource that we have put together for you. This will also be shared after the training. This is available to everybody, free to use. And what this is a question guide. Ben, I see your comment. So PICA is property, income, credit, and assets. Now you'll see here, it's broken up into different tabs. So if you want, you can go section by section. I like to use the single list, which has all of the options here, just because on a conversation, it's going to bounce around naturally. This allows you to track and fill out answers or responses and take notes here. You can also use the check marks just so that towards the end of the call, you can say, oh, you know what, I forgot, and circle back and ask anything important that you realized you've missed. But again, I would really encourage everybody to use this tool, especially as you're starting out and building that repetition with this first call, as a great way to make sure that you know you're asking everything that you need to about all of these different areas. From there, that will also let you give enough information to our HQ team so that if we need to do a scenario review or try and find a custom loan solution, you can provide all of the information that our team is going to ask about, and you don't have to go back and forth with the client because nobody likes doing that. And I'm sure none of you like having to go back after a conversation to get more information. So great resource to use to make sure that you're covering all of your bases as you go through digging deep with your clients. So last thing we're going to talk about is pivoting. And actually, we're going to pause there. I see a couple questions coming in. So Vanessa, that's a great question. Wouldn't these be on the application? Yes, it is. And in some cases, your client may have already filled those out. If that's the case, great. You're already starting out with more information. What you should do there is I would highly encourage you to go through and confirm some of that stuff that they put on the information, but also get more detail. Remember that nobody likes filling out paperwork. So when clients fill out these forms, they're going to put in what they think is the minimum amount of information before it lets them get to the next stage. Something we see a lot of times is clients will put in their employment, but they won't, maybe they only started a year and a half ago. And the system knows we need 2 years of employment, so it won't let them move on until they have 2 years. So they just simply change the date so that their current employer, they worked there for 2 years. When we go to do a verification of employment, we're going to find out they don't have a 2-year work history, and we're going to have to find out where they worked before. So like there's an example of something where uncovering that, where we've seen clients like to take shortcuts on their application. So if they have filled some of that out, just make sure you verify. It's also a chance to dig deeper and understand more of the context around some of that as well. And so, Ben, that's a great question as well. How to avoid duplication of asking all the questions for a scenario form and then doing a pre-approval application. So that's the same thing, right? Hopefully, if we've gone through the call and you've had a chance and you've been able to go through all of these questions, you shouldn't have to repeat or go back, right? We may need to re-enter that, but now we have all of that information. We don't have to go back to the client a second time to do that. These questions are specifically designed to match up to what is it that we're asking about on the scenario review forms. That said, if you're going through and somebody finds some questions that they think aren't on there that are helpful or that you've found success with or that have come up in a scenario review, go ahead and flag those. Send those to Tim and I. We can update this all the time. This will be available as a link. So as we update it, you'll be able to see it with updated questions. We've tried to do a pretty thorough job, but I'm sure there's one or two we missed. So we're going to rely on you guys on helping us refine that as you go. If you find there's other questions that are missing, let us know and we can add them to there. It's not meant to be the exhaustive end all be all, but a really good starting point for you to go. All right. I'm going to let you respond to Keela's question there in the comments, just so we're going to keep moving on the training here. But Keela, that's a really good question and a great point, something that you can use to talk to with your clients on how quickly Morty is able to get loans pre-approved or into process. So pivoting, right? We've talked about how we want the call to go. It doesn't always happen in real life, right? Clients have lots of questions. They want to know a few things. They want to know, what can I afford? How much money do I have to put out? What is my rate going to be? And what does that mean my monthly payment is going to be, right? They're going to want to cut to the chase and jump ahead. We know as loan officers, there's a ton of variables that go into a loan, and you need to know a decent amount of information to do your job as the expert and not just recommend a loan they qualify for, but the best loan that they qualify for and their situation. So pivoting is going to be a really useful tactic on how to control the call, get it back on track to where you want to go, while letting the client feel heard and not making them feel like you've dismissed them or written off what their questions or concerns were. So how do we do that? Through something I call an ARP. So acknowledge, respond, pivot is what it stands for. The first step of that is acknowledge. So in here, it's a yes before no mindset. We want to make the client feel good for asking a question or at bringing up an objection, right? We never want to make them feel less or belittle them or marginalize the question. We want to make them feel positive for asking, right? And that's a great question. That's a great thing for you as well, is you want your clients asking you questions and giving you objections. That lets you know what they care about, so you know what's important to them when you go to present the loan and what to highlight and focus on. So again, acknowledge. Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. Really good point. I'm glad you brought that up. All different ways that you can positively acknowledge what the client is interjecting with. From there, now we want to respond, right? So we can't just say, great question, and then go back to talking about whatever we want to talk about. We have to give them something, right? So something I use a lot is what we call a bandwagon. Great point. A lot of my clients have felt that way as well, right? Or we get that question a lot, or that's a common thing that I wouldn't say misconception, but that's a common question that we get. From there, now you're going to transition into your pivot. This is where you're going to explain why that fits in with where you want the conversation to go. And then you're going to end with a question. We're hardwired conversationally. If somebody asks you a question, you're going to respond to that. Once they do, now you're in the control and you can ask another question and start steering the conversation back to client goals. So let's hear how it sounds just as an example. Let's say, you mention an FHA loan and a client says, well, I don't want to do an FHA loan. I heard you have to pay PMI. Wow, I'm really glad you brought that up. That's a great point. A lot of clients I work with are scared or worried about an FHA loan because of the mortgage insurance that goes with it. What they found and what I've found, they may not always realize, is that an FHA program allows you to get into a home sooner by having a lower down payment. So yes, while you may pay a little bit monthly in mortgage insurance, if you can get into a home sooner, you avoid throwing money away every month on rent. So an FHA program can be a great option if it lets you get into the home sooner. How much do you have for down payment? Right? We've ended in a question and we've pivoted right back to client goals while making the client feel positive about asking the question, addressing it, educating them, and then bringing it back to what we need to talk about and the information we need to get from them in order to do our jobs. Another thing, be honest here. If you don't know, don't make stuff up. It is totally okay to say, I'm not sure. I know that's very scary, especially if we're new and it feels like there's a lot more stuff we don't know than stuff we do know, but that's okay. If you do it with confidence, your client will feel confident about it as well. So I don't know, but I'll get you the answer, and then making sure that you follow up promptly. From there, support at Morty. You can also use the different Slack channels as well as a way to get a quick answer there. So that's, we've covered again how to pivot. I've got a quick video here of somebody on Instagram I like to follow called Ask Vin, with a really cool way or way of approaching this. So
best conversation technique ever. Okay? Yes and is when no matter what somebody says to you, even if it's negative, someone says to you, look, your product is too expensive. Yeah, and the reason why that is because we put more into L&D. Anytime you use yes and in a negative situation, it steers the conversation in a positive direction. Most people say yes, but. And when you say yes, but, you negate their thought. When you say yes and, you're building on their thoughts. Always in a positive direction, no matter what you say to me. It doesn't matter how negative it is. Then we decided not to go with you. Yes, and I'd love to know why. Always positive. Otherwise, people go, yeah, but what happened? Now you seem less. It's a very powerful language model. Best.
Okay, so just again, a simple little trick that we can use again to help us respond positively to clients as they come in with questions or interjections or maybe negative news for us. So we've talked about all of this. We're going to rep through how it sounds. Originally, we were going to have Tim play the client and get into some digging deep questions. We are running a little bit over here, so I want to make sure we have time to get to practice and then answering questions at the end. So for this, what we're going to do is we're actually just going to do the first two steps. So we're going to do the strong intro and the personalized brand. And then from there, we're going to break and explain the activity where you all are going to get to practice this out. So Tim's going to play the client here. Tim, your phone's ringing.
Hello, can I help you?
Hi, is this Tim?
Tim speaking.
Hey, Tim, this is Ingmar from Morty, your mortgage broker. I understand you were looking for some information on purchasing a home. I'm going to be helping you out with that. Do you have a pen and paper? I'd like to get you my contact information.
Ingmar, you caught me off guard. I actually don't have a pen and paper on me at the moment.
Hey, you know what? Not a problem. From what you filled out online for us, I've got your contact information. It looks like tim@morty.com. Is that a good email for you?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to go ahead. I'll send you my contact information so you know how to get in touch with me, or if we get disconnected here. Just a little bit quickly about myself. I'm a mortgage broker here at Morty. I've been in the mortgage business for over 7 years and have experience with a broad type of products as well as different types of lenders. So we're going to ask you some questions here and help you figure out exactly what is the best product for you and make sure that we're getting you the best pricing as well. Have you worked with Morty before?
I have not worked with Morty before, but I have heard of it.
Okay, perfect. So, you may have heard a little bit about us. We're an online mortgage place or marketplace. So what that means for you is we're paired with a nationwide network of lenders, some of the largest lenders in the country, where you're going to get very competitive pricing. We also pair with some smaller lenders that offer loan programs that some of these bigger lenders don't, so that we're able to make sure we're putting you in the absolute best product for you and your situation. In order to do that, I do want to find out a little bit more information about you. So I'm going to ask you a few questions right now just to understand your situation and a little bit more about your profile. And from there, we'll get into figuring out what's going to be the best option for you. So tell me a little bit, how long have you been looking to purchase a home?
So I haven't actually put any offers in or anything like that just yet. We are looking to start a family somewhat soon. So it's something where there's more and more thought going into it. We want to try to get this figured out in the next few months or so.
Okay, awesome. So something we've been thinking about. What anything that's changed and led you to decide now's the right time?
I think again, just trying to start a family, and once we are at that stage, we want to just have like our forever home, or at least our long-term home situation lined up. So yeah, kind of just major life event, I guess you could say.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know, if you're starting a family, going from renting to having your own place is really powerful and really important first step in building a family. Right. So we'll break there, but you can see how already just by asking open-ended questions, we're starting to find out more about the client and being able to tie it into their emotional goals and motivations that we can come back to later when we're presenting a loan and painting vision emotionally and financially on what that's going to do for them. So now we've talked about it. You've heard how it sounds. It's your turn. You're going to go and do it. So in just a moment, we're going to go into breakout rooms. We are going to ask everybody to turn on their cameras for that portion. All right. Now you're going to have about 5 minutes. So when you get in the breakout room, first, just quick introductions with everybody so that everybody knows who they are. And then you're going to go through your strong intro and your personalized value. Stop when you get into the client goals. So who are you? Why are you calling? A call to action, your personalized value, and Morty's personalized value. From there, then stop, let the next person go. After everybody has shared, use the remaining time to give some feedback, right? What are the things you heard other people using that you liked? What were the things that came through well? It's always helpful to know what we're doing well and maybe what we could do better at. So I'll, of course, be constructive. We're all figuring it out and trying here, but go ahead, go through the first 2 steps and then provide some feedback. And then we'll come back here and break and do a quick recap, talk about some things to come, and hopefully get everybody out of here pretty close to on time. All right, welcome back, everybody. So hopefully you found that helpful and you were able to get some reps there practicing and some good feedback on how that sounds, and hopefully take some things from some other people as well as how that sounds. We'll leave that, but I would highly encourage you continue to practice this out, right? We'll talk about that a little bit in a second, but repping this out is going to be really important to go from sounding a little bit of clunky and awkward where you're trying to think, did I hit all the steps that Ingmar was talking about, to being able to do it on autopilot where you're taking notes and engaged in the call and you don't even have to think about what is coming up next. Keela, no worries. I appreciate it, but yeah, we'll let you focus on the road for today. But I do appreciate willing to jump in there. So just quickly to recap here, I know we're running a couple minutes over. So strong intro, right? We want to be concise. We want to be confident in our tone, make sure that we're in a quiet environment. We've got good body language, and we include a call to action so that we're engaging that client in the first 30 seconds, getting them involved in the conversation so they don't start to tune us out. From there, we want to go into our personalized value. Again, what is it that makes you special and unique as a loan officer? What are the things that you like about Morty and about the platform and what it does and why that is important or should be important for your clients? From there, active listening as you get into your client goals, right? Making sure that you're using Pika. You're asking about property, income, credit, assets. Leverage that question guide that we built for you to help with taking notes and stay on track. Also use your active listening, right? Parrot things back to confirm the understanding and build that emotional connection with your clients. If, or I probably should say when, things get thrown off track by questions that your clients have, you can use that to make them feel good about their questions, but get the call back on track by using that ARP. So again, acknowledge in a really positive yes before no type of mindset, respond relevantly to the client's inquiry or question, and then tie that into something you need to know and pivot back to getting the call on track. Right. The last thing I'll say, we talked about just a moment ago, practice, 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 right? This is something, whether it's in the shower, whether you're driving in the car, maybe try practicing at home with a spouse or significant other at home. But the more you can practice this, the more it's going to sound polished and professional and confident when you're on the phone with your client. So practice it a lot. I do have one more video from our friend Vin here on just some really good tips on things you can do at home by yourself to also practice and refine and hone how you come across on the phone.
Want a 5-minute video of yourself, and you need to speak improvised. So first time you review it, turn the sound all the way up, press play, turn your phone down, just listen. Audit the auditory component of your voice, known as your vocal image. What do you like about it? What don't you like about it? Second, grab the phone, turn the sound off, press play, make sure it's on mute, just look at yourself. How's your body language? What's your facial expressions like? Do a visual audit of your visual image. Third component, get the video transcribed. Red highlighter, bring all your non-words and filler words to the forefront of your mind. That's robbing you of clarity every time you talk. You basically have a mirror in front of you. It's a very powerful routine. Simply record.
Right, so just another good tactic, something you can use at home to get yourself practice and work on this in between having clients to talk to. So that's it for the training. Thank you everyone for coming. I really appreciate you coming and spending the hour here.
Congrats, you made it to the end. Thanks for tuning in. We hope you're leaving this workshop with actionable tips and new skills to use in your mortgage business. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Morty's YouTube channel for more webinars and resources. And check out our platform at morty.com for more on how we can help your mortgage business thrive.